Israel is considering alternatives and planning a response to Iran's aggression, while Iran is allegedly on high alert, waiting for Israel's answer. Meanwhile, ordinary Iranians are marching against the Ayatollah dictatorship and asking that there be no war, leaving us to wonder if anyone would listen. In Gaza, Hamas is pressuring Palestinians to return to the north in order to re-establish authority, while records show that aid shipments to the Gaza Strip are at an all-time high. Meanwhile, everyone is wondering when the IDF will enter Rafah, Gaza.
With tensions escalating between Israel and Iran, what steps should the international community take to prevent further conflict, and is there a path towards de-escalation without compromising security?
You are listening to your Brute's Underground report of what occurred in Israel on the 193rd day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and all of Iran's proxy forces, including the Houthis in Yemen and the Shiite Muslims in Iraq and Syria. Today I'm writing to you from the northern border between Israel and Lebanon. Did you hear the entire list of Israel's enemies? And they claim there is no regional war in the Middle East. Following the Iranian strike early Sunday morning, Foreign Minister Israel Katz met with the foreign ministers of France, Great Britain, Egypt, and several other nations. He also sent 32 letters to his counterparts in the European Union and other nations urging them to impose sanctions on Iran's missile program and declare the Revolutionary Guards a terrorist organization. Israel's message to its Western friends, led by the United States, is that it must respond to Tehran's strike, but we want to do so in concert with Washington rather than as a surprise. Major General Herzi Halevi, the IDF Chief of Staff, paid a visit to the Neva team base yesterday, which was hit by an Iranian missile. During his visit, he stated that the launch of so many missiles, cruise missiles, and unmanned aerial vehicles into Israeli territory would be greeted with a response. Iran will bear the repercussions of its conduct. We'll choose our reaction accordingly.
Given the dire economic situation and civil unrest in Iran, do you think there's a chance for significant internal change? And how could this impact Iran's foreign policy, especially its stance towards Israel?
Look, Israel is aware of the worldwide pressure on it to avoid responding to Iran's strikes, but we will make it clear to our partners that we are not interested in driving the area to war and do not want to undermine the international alliance created the night of the attack. Meanwhile, Iranian media said that Tehran is poised for any reprisal from Israel. Among other things, it was stated that the overwhelming response would be issued immediately following the Israeli response, including a warning to employ weaponry they had never used before. Israel's purpose is clear: exact a price on Iran following an attack that included the unprecedented firing of over 300 missiles and UAVs. Such an attack would demonstrate to Tehran that Israel can strike anywhere and harm its assets. The response may surprise, but one country will not be startled this time: the United States. In Jerusalem, they promised the Americans that, unlike the assaults in Damascus ascribed to Israel that murdered Hassan Makdavi, they would be notified ahead of time. This ensures that American forces will not be injured if the Iranians strike them in response to Tehran's repeated threats. Following the death of a top Revolutionary Guards officer in Damascus, the United States was upset that Israel only alerted them of the incident at the last minute. American Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has spoken with Defense Minister Jove Gallant 3 times since last Saturday, twice on Saturday before the attack and once again on Sunday.
Considering the fragile state of affairs, how do you believe Israel should navigate its response to Iranian aggression, balancing the need for defense with the risks of regional war?
Gallant outlined to Austin the Israeli considerations in his choice to respond. In the midst of all this international criticism, a top American official clarified that the U.S. President Joe Biden will not prevent Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from invading Iran. The president stated on the sidelines of a meeting with Iraq's Prime Minister, "I am committed to Israel's security as well as the protection of American interests and partners in the region, including Iraq." Let us now focus on average Iranians. The current economic turmoil in Iran primarily affects the middle class and those with modest incomes. Iran's inflation rate exceeds 50%, electricity, food, and housing prices are rising, and the Iranian currency's value has been falling for years. As of this morning, it would take nearly 42,000 Iranian rials to match the worth of $1 USD. Despite the poor quality of life that Iran's dictatorship has provided for its people, while recklessly pursuing avoidable confrontations with Israel and the West, the regime continues to enjoy some domestic support. Shortly after the bombing this weekend, Iran's state television televised a modest demonstration conducted in many places to show support for the regime's extraordinary assault. The event included the typical threat of death to Israel and America, as well as other traditional activities such as the burning of U.S. and Israeli flags.
Hamas's reluctance to agree to a long-term ceasefire has complex implications. What is their endgame, and how should Israel deal with their shifting demands?
However, there is no denying that the vast majority of ordinary Iranians are dissatisfied with the system and eager for change. The Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which serves as the regime's enforcers, issued a menacing message yesterday, warning against the publication of pro-Israel posts on Iranian social media networks. This warning came after regime opponents in Iran and abroad showed support for Israel on the internet. The general sense of apprehension in Iran has only risen in recent days, as some foreign countries have begun evacuating diplomats' families, like they did before the Islamic Revolution in 1979 or around the commencement of the war with Iraq in 1980. If foreign citizens leave Iran, it indicates that Iran is under threat. This is according to a Tehran resident who spoke with international media sources. He expressed his prediction that we will become increasingly lonely and unhappy. As the IRGC in Iran seeks to suppress the truth, I'd like to take this occasion to request your assistance in spreading the truth. Please share this video on YouTube and follow us on social media. Please take a moment to follow our channel and subscribe so that we can all work together to give the truth its rightful position. While everyone was dealing with Iran's missiles, the war against the terrorist organization Hamas continued. Hamas ruled out a hostage agreement on Monday, offering to free just roughly 20 abductees in exchange for a 6-week ceasefire.
The plight of ordinary Iranians is often lost in the political struggle. If you were in their shoes, would you support a regime change, and at what potential cost?
This is around half of the number of abductees originally planned. Furthermore, an Israeli official stated that Hamas has begun to give the mediators bogus explanations to explain the decline in the number of hostages they are willing to free. For example, Hamas maintains that some of the abductees mentioned in this portion of the agreement are women, males over the age of 50, and men in critical medical condition who are no longer living or are not in their possession. They have also raised the number of Palestinian security prisoners in Israeli jails who they want released in return for the Israeli hostages. Israeli officials pointed out that in their response to the mediators, Hamas separates the agreement into many sections and binds them together. According to the Israeli official, Hamas requires a phase-by-phase implementation of the agreement, including international guarantees to cease the fighting in Phase 2. According to him, Hamas also seeks the removal of IDF forces from vast sections of the Gaza Strip, which is already in Phase 1, as well as the full return of Palestinians to the northern half of the Gaza Strip and complete freedom of movement throughout the Strip beginning with Phase 1 of the agreement. Look, there isn't a single clause in which Hamas supports or accepts the mediator's viewpoint. Hamas completely rewrote the proposal, doubling and tripling its demands. The conclusion is that Hamas is simply delaying the negotiations and has no real interest in a settlement or a ceasefire.
As Hamas spreads misinformation about IDF movements, how can the truth be maintained on the ground, and what role do you think social media should play in conflicts like these?
Perhaps they believe that Iran's attack on Israel will relieve them of strain, and they continue to aspire for arena unification and escalation in the region's conflict with Israel. The continued torture of Palestinian citizens by Hamas serves as further evidence of this attitude. While everyone focused their attention eastward to Iran, Hamas in the Gaza Strip attempted a delicate exercise. Members of the terrorist organization distributed a statement yesterday, claiming that the IDF authorized people to return to the northern section of the Gaza Strip, which the IDF later rejected. The denial didn't help. Thousands of Palestinians gathered at the crossroads leading to the transition point between the center and northern parts of the Gaza Strip following Hamas declaration.
Thank you for watching the full video. We are Rio G Media. Our only job is to keep our finger on the pulse of the war. Please write in the comments if you have thoughts on the questions we ask. If you want to support us, just subscribe and like the video.